Okay, it is a little bit after 8:30 Central Standard Time, and we are in week one of Introduction to Criminal Law. And I am Professor Richard Wright, and I will be instructor. Excuse me a second here. For the next 11 weeks. And I'm going to tell you up front that this is an exciting course. Well, I was a lawyer for many years. You'll hear about that at the end. And I was a criminal defense lawyer primarily, though I did other things as well. I was also a prosecutor locally. I was a police officer. I was an investigator. I handled internal affairs. I was a paralegal, which is I was a law clerk then, but it's called a paralegal now. I did all of that stuff. I was a messenger in a big law firm, a file clerk, a law librarian, and then a lawyer for many, many years. And then, some of my background information, you have it already from the student lounge. So at any rate, I'm going to get right into this. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over expectations about what we have as far as this quarter is concerned. There's a lot of written assignments, but you're going to have some things that you won't have in other classes, and we'll cover those. Might as well go ahead and get started with that now. Let me let me go do that. Give me a second here. Okay. Okay, let's share my screen, see what we come up with. Okay, there it is. And so you see right now in front of you something that you're very familiar with and you'll become familiar with excuse me, as the quarter goes on. And so I'm going to start out by letting you know my instructor information is always in the right-hand corner at the top, a little picture of me. My cell phone number, 630-660-8480. And pay attention to this note under it. I mean what I say. It's not an error. It's not just talking. Students who've had me, they know, yes, I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. Feel free to call me, text me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. Now, I had a student that said, why not the 25th hour of the day? I said, you figure that one out yourself. And then one of the other students came forth and said, there's only 24. And so basically what that means is I'm available to you. And so as a result of that, I find myself telling people all the time, I says that there is no excuse for you not succeeding in my class because I'm accessible to you. I may not always answer exactly when you reach out to me, but you'll be surprised that lots of times late at night, I will still be upgrading papers. Just to let you know, I have 120 students spread throughout 5 classes. But the good part about it is one of the classes is 3 sections of it. So, but this is my favorite criminal law, and I like to spend a lot of time explaining to people some of the things that you'll get. Now, I sent out PowerPoints to each of you already. I would advise you to get those PowerPoints, save them, because they're good tools. And then I also provide some other information to help you, like an outline of the chapters. And again, I'm going to cover that in just a few minutes. So anyway, in addition to that, on the home page, there's a lot of good information for you on the home page. I remind you in this bold, this all cap section, that you are required to conduct research for all papers. That means the sole source of your papers cannot be textbook. You will lose 2 points for failure to conduct research right off the bat. That's in addition to what's in the rubric. But I remind students that it's important because one of the things we want to try to stress to you guys is we want to get you to be proficient in terms of being able to research. Very, very, very important. And a lot of times students will take stuff out of the textbook and then they'll use that in their papers, which I have no problem with, but don't rely heavily on that. We want you to do some research, and there are sources that are available to you to help you here. All written assignments, and we're going to talk about those, all written assignments should be in APA format. Now, if you're not familiar with APA format, I have some information here in the other section here. We're going to go on the other side in a minute to explain APA. But primarily for my purposes, it means citations in the body of the paper and references at the end. And I like to also point out to you a cover sheet for all written assignments. I'm going to have to amend that and add that in there. And then these are some things that can help you. You have your advisors. There is what we call peer mentor and versus tutoring. Peer mentor and tutoring are almost the same way we use it here, is that peers are students who have gone through and they can help you. It's like a big brother type thing, people who, or big sister, that can help you to become familiar with the system. It's very important to students that are new to the program so that they begin to understand how it works. And then tutoring is not something that's just for you struggling. It can also help you enhance and do well. Student tutors are available through a method called Tutor Match, and I'll be sharing a little bit about that in just a second here. And then there are guides to student success. If you take a look at these guides and click on these things, you will see some of the things that I'm talking about. And it tells you some things to be successful. So all you have to do is put your mouse on it, and then you do this. And there it pops up. Excuse me. There's a video there that tells you. It's about 3 minutes long. And so we have these kinds of things that are available to you as well to help you out. And so then library answers, a writing guide to help you with your writing, and then library and learning resources. That's where you can get a lot of your resources for your research. I encourage you to use a lot of resources. One resource I discourage using, and I say this all the time, never, never, never use Wikipedia. You will lose points instantly for that because of the fact that Wikipedia is a very unreliable source. It is a word-based system, and anyone can manipulate and change it. So it's not credible or reliable. You may have heard this before, but now you know it from here. And then tutoring assistance, there are different ways, and you can take time to familiarize yourself by clicking on these things, which tells you about how to get tutoring help and things like that. And then your assignments, how to connect with tutoring services for all students, how do tutor services work, live tutoring help, and then your options. So basically, to help with your written assignments, tutoring services can also help you, as well as earlier in the study and writing. Then these are some resources that we implemented last quarter to help you with your written assignments, going beyond the textbook. I already kind of talked about that. Analytical tips for criminal justice students to help you with papers. The importance of information literacy for criminal justice. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Referencing for criminal justice students, and then writing the annotated bibliography, which you won't really be doing that in this class, but you will be doing it in other classes. And then I have an article on police report writing. That was another class I taught, but I keep including it in there. So let me get a second here. I'm going to pause a second, so hold on. Okay, so anyway, make sure that you utilize these articles that I've provided for you. And then the all-important rubrics. Now, most of your writing will involve every week a written assignment. And each written assignment has a different topic. And it tells you, now, I want to tell you right now that the written assignment for the first week is the first and only one that you'll see with this one page. And then you'll have to cover these issues in there. And then you'll see if you don't do APA, you're going to lose 3 points as well. So you want to make sure that the page is the right length. So let's say if it's less than a page, then you're going to lose 1 point. If you don't satisfy APA requirements, which is citations and references, then you're going to lose 4 points, and you'll be at 16 right away. So it is important to try to utilize these. This is what I use to grade, and you'll often see my remarks. Some of my remarks will be repetitious to you. I see you continue to doing the same thing. Also, Grammarly is a system that we have for checking your assignments to make sure that you're providing critical thinking, that you're not just copying and pasting information. A lot of people think that you satisfy the requirements for plagiarism by just giving citations and references, which is satisfying APA, but we're primarily interested in your analysis, your critical thinking, your understanding about the assignments themselves, how you analyze the issues. There's no right or wrong answers. I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to agree with me. But the point of the matter is that when you do present something to support your position as well. So Grammarly points. If you get beyond a 20, and I'm very liberal with it. Some professors are much 10 to 15%. They start to dot points, but I usually give students the benefit of the doubt that if you go beyond 25, then you're going to lose a percentage of your grade. So let's say, for example, if your grade is possibly 100 points, and then you're going to end up with a 35 or 40, then you're going to end up with a 60 as your grade, which is not passing. And you could have a real good paper, but it's not really enough information in there showing that you've put some thought into the assignment. We don't want students to get into the habit of throwing assignments together because you don't learn that way. You learn by working through researching, analyzing, and critiquing the information that's presented. So every week, notice this, 2 to 3 pages. After week 1, it turns to 2 to 3 pages. Notice that. You'll see it all the way down. I also sent you an email with the rubric as well. So you are all the way around. And sometimes people say, well, you should put them in the announcements. I don't do that. I put them on the page. All you have to do is, if you can't find yours, go to the home page right next to the announcements, and you'll see it. For every week, you'll see that. Every week. All the way down to week 11. Now, in addition, there's what we call course projects. Now, Your course projects in this class are different from course projects that you might have in other classes. In other classes, your course projects is a continuum of building up to one big paper. Here we give it to you in segments. In fact, you don't have one of these every week. However, you will discover that in week 1, for example, the first course project is introduction. It's a paper 2 to 3 pages in length. I'm going to talk about it in more detail in a minute, where you define the terms of the project. And a lot of students ask me, do I have to define them? I always say, you go back and look at the rubric. Apply the terms to the facts. Identifies the difference between state and federal court. And then, of course, the APA requirements, 5. That's a total of 100 points. Again, make sure you do your Grammarly check. And when you do your Grammarly check, make sure you check the box that says plagiarism. Now, you'll notice something very interesting about this, and you should be excited about what I'm getting ready to say. Pay attention. The first week, you're going to have that and your written assignment to do. We haven't gotten to the discussion post yet. Then week 2, you don't. Week 3, you have a different one. Notice the page length is required also. Then you get all the way from once you finish with week 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, there is no course project. So that's good. But when you get to week 8, all the way through to week 11, there's going to be one. So you're going to make sure you have that. So those are the rubrics. And again, I sent them to you, but also, like I said again, they're right here in your class in front of you. I recommend using them to see, did I do my paper well enough? Did I cover all of these issues? Students oftentimes say to me, not often, but some say, I have trouble writing a 2-page paper. I says, well, if you have trouble doing that, then you're not going to adequately cover all the issues here. And you're going to lose points, not just here, but you're not going to be able to get some of these points. Let's say, for example, if you didn't have it 2 to 3 pages and it fell short of that, and 2 to 3 pages means what it says. So 2 means 2, and if you do 3, that's okay. If you go above that, that's okay, but not under that. So, and that doesn't count the cover sheet or the reference page. So then you get to the point of these various issues that you have to cover. Let's say, for example, you don't cover, you don't identify the legal issues on appeal from the fact pattern. So then, and then your paper is not in the right length. So you lost 35 points. 35 points. So your grade is going to end up being like 65, which is not a good grade. So the key thing is recognizing what you have to do. Then there is your discussion rubric, which you have here as well, and I'm not going to click on that. And this involves what you need to do for a discussion post. And we'll elaborate on discussion post in just a minute. So there's a rubric in there for that. You'll find that a lot of my grading follows very closely what's in this rubric. So you have your expectations already before you and knowledgeable based upon what's in the rubric and what's in the module, which we'll cover as well. So then we have live lectures. I know you know this because you're here already. The open house is taking place right now. And it says from 8:30 to 9:30. We may go a little longer, though, because of the fact that there's a few things I'm going to share with you about myself at the very end that I won't share after that very much. And then the lectures will take place during an hour and a half. So this might go an hour and a half tonight as well. But beginning next Tuesday, 8:30 to 10, we have a lot of material to cover. So then I have a habit of reviewing the assignments with you as well, because it helps students to focus on what the assignments are for that week. Live lectures take place in addition to tonight week 2, your even weeks, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And that's 8:30 Central. Okay? So now let's go over here to the other side. And these are, again, this is something to help you with the writing process. And if you take a look at that, it takes you all the steps that I've kind of talked about a little bit. Again, you will see these most of the quarter. Then APA guides that can help you. You can copy and paste this link, and it will help you to get there. I think also at the bottom, yeah, there it is right there. You don't even have to do that. All you have to do is click on this, and it'll take you to explain APA, sample papers, explain to you reference and in-text citations, and formatting, and all of those kinds of things. So now here's the welcome announcement, which you have already seen, because it tells you about myself. It tells you things that you should do to help you be successful, and make sure that you kind of check these all off, that you've checked out. Man, I don't know why this cough is. It's probably because it's so cold here. Not my house is not, but I don't know. But anyway, check all of these different tabs for information that will help you. With the resources tab right now is covered up by Edgar right here, so I'm going to lower Edgar a little bit, and just right here. And if you click on that, it opens up a lot of things for you as well, okay? Then you get down here, it tells you about when our lectures is again, every other week, 8:30 to 10, and it gives a link and so forth. And if you, like I say again, this welcome message is very important to you, and it helps to guide you for it as well, for the whole quarter. Now, every week you will have an announcement, and your announcement that you have here tells you what your assignments are for the week. And it tells you what the topic is that we're discussing that week. Why do we have criminal laws? We're not going to go into discussing that tonight, because the lecture would end up going about 3 hours, because then I would have to cover the PowerPoints all together. But right now I'm laying things out so you understand the process. So it's your first assignment, and it's going to be in the calendar, which again we're going to look at in a minute. And each announcement tells you what chapters to read. And then you have PowerPoints and an outline of each of those chapters as well. Activities, what is a criminal law and criminal procedure? How does a crime become a law? These are things that are not written assignments, but they are assignments that will help you to understand what the whole module is all about. And again, reminding you that the lecture takes place starting next week at 8:30 p.m. Try to come. I don't have many that come, but when those students come, I have students that at the end of the quarter, they're actually glad they came. I thought I turned that off. That's my phone. So anyway, make sure you try to make as many as you can. I will be archiving the lecture. Students always ask that, but try not to rely on those, because you can ask questions in real time that you can't ask at the lecture. So then there's a discussion assignment. This week it's Military Tribunal, Hamdan versus Rasmussen. Now note this, that the initial post is not due tonight. It is normally due on Tuesdays, but on Wednesday, because we start today. So, but notice the bold print. Please pay attention to that. I had a student that we do this once in a while, and I try to highlight it as much as I can, remind them, read the announcement carefully. Starting next week, all initial posts will be due on Tuesday. If you are submitting your initial post on Wednesday, starting next week, you will lose points. And then your reply post remains Saturday until we get to week 11, which we won't even have to deal with that right now because we got a ways to go there. But be rest assured it comes very fast. Finally, the written assignments, we've talked about that. Every week there is a quiz. 10 questions, 10 minutes. Basically one question per minute. Here's the deal. I recommend to students, and I say this all the time, but sometimes students don't take me up on it. Try to do the quiz at the end of the week, like on Sunday or Saturday, after you had a chance to go through the material, because you are not supposed to have any material in front of you when you take the quiz, and you don't have enough time to do that. You have to be prepared when you go through it and study it. So the quiz is very important. You're going to have 110 points for quizzes, which means 11 weeks, 10 questions. We'll see that in a minute. They are due every Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then the course project, which I talked about, you'll be completing the introduction this week, which is also due Sunday as well. Then a reminder about the open house. This is something that I always encourage my students to focus on and get this in. You might want to hang it over your computer or something, put it on the wall. Start strong and finish strong. And then my motto is adversity is a springboard to success. I can't tell you how often students go through the quarter and something happens and they don't tell me right away. I've had some very serious things happen to students, and I'm willing to work with students and help you, but you have to let me know. But then I'm going to explain to you adversity is not something that I have my students to deal with. I'm going to share with you my road that I went through to get to where I am now, and that's going to be at the very end. So you want to hold on for that. So now let's quickly take a look at the calendar. Here is the course calendar. And the course calendar tells you stuff that you already have been told here. Oh, I thought I took that out. Wait, it's got J150 in there. I thought I closed that. Let's take that out of there. There we go. This is your calendar. That's another class that was, I clicked on that section. When I click them for each class, I try to make sure that you just see your own calendar for the class. So your reading assignment, which I already went over with you, and it tells you right there, you can open it up, and it tells you, again, you got multiple places that you find information in my class. I believe in cross-referencing. Then your initial post. This says Tuesday. Let's put that Wednesday, because actually that's Wednesday because of the issue of starting. But starting next week, it will be Tuesday. So it is Wednesday and not Tuesday. Then your reply post. Your reply post is due on Saturday. And then your written assignments, I told you, and quiz and that. And then next week, we go through the same thing. Then you see there's our first lecture, and the whole thing is laid out on your calendars time-wise. Hold your questions, if you have any, until the end. Make a note and ask them, because I want to make sure I cover all these things so you understand. Again, there's this section here that gives your written assignment. Now, so this particular assignment, as I said, is 1 page long, and I tell students, I say that when you prepare this, there's a clue in here that helps you with your research about dealing with this issue. But there are certain cases that are mentioned in here that are important, such as Gideon versus Wainwright, and then this case right here. You'll if you check it, copy and paste it into your browser, you'll be able to find what I'm talking about. But it will help you to answer these questions. You need to answer these questions in 1 page or more, but at the minimum of 1 page, not a half a page. And please, please, please write your papers double space in paragraph, not single space, double space in paragraphs. And paragraphs should consist of 5 to 6 sentences. I have had students that had papers submitted. The whole paper is 1 paragraph. But make sure you read all of the requirements here. And I'm not going to go over them except to say to you that you want to make sure that you satisfy these bullet points that are in here, okay? And then, now, this is the introduction. Now, keeping in mind your projects, each of them bring you 100 points. And I told you that, you know, you're gonna have 8 of them, but you're not gonna have them weeks. You have weeks 1 and 3, and then you're not gonna have 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then you're gonna have 8, 9, 10, and 11. In this part of the project, it says 2 to 3 pages using the terms I already told you in the rubric: indictment, speedy trial, prosecutor, public defender, plea bargain, jury trials, and the difference between state and federal courts. You're going to have citations and references, have given research about each of these. Don't just throw it in there. Elaborate on it as if I don't even know what these words mean, and apply them to ABC. You're going to learn about Alan, Betty, and Charlie the whole quarter, and all the facts that are involved. And I'm not going to go over these facts with you, but to tell you, the key in this assignment is to line up with the rubric and make sure that you did your Grammarly check. And I already told you this is APA formatted as well. Then we get to the discussion post. Now, discussion posts, you know, I don't mind students not having citations and references, but I love them. It shows me that you're paying attention and that you're not just shooting off a statement or something. You've done some little research on there. And I want them to be, how should I say, not just one-liners, not just good post, or elaborate why it's a good post. Explain your issues in there. And then your initial post, as I said, generally due on Tuesday, but this week Wednesday, and then Saturday for your reply post. Listen, people, get them on time so you can maximize your points. I have had a few students that missed the deadline by about 5 or 10 minutes, midnight. I don't deduct points for that because I understand that. But I am, if you're going to, like, you know, that afternoon, 2 to 3 hours later, I see it, then you're going to lose points for it. In addition to that, I want you to understand something about these. The minimum is 2 initial posts and reply posts, but I encourage students to reply to as many posts as you feel. I had one student, she used to always, every week, do 4 posts at a minimum, and she would comment about them, and she was almost like having a second teacher, and that made the discussion forum go better. So remember, the purpose for the discussion forum is to discuss the issue of that week, and it's after that week that subject is over. So I'll comment about that again in a minute, and then I already told you about the quizzes. So now let's get back to the lesson content. Now, the lesson content starts out with giving the objectives, what the module is going to accomplish, defining crime, understand why there is need for criminal law in the Constitution, and then how laws are enacted. Now, I already told you earlier, again, it gives you the assignments. Now notice something that it says. It just basically suggests that it should take you this amount of time to do these things. It may not take you that long, but it is very, 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 very important. And if you notice, in every one of these assignments, the actual assignments, you'll see the word study, and then you'll see that word research, reflection. Reflection gives you an opportunity to give thought to what the issues are and add those to your paper. Study, research. Same thing we say for discussion posts. Quizzes, we already told you how to get ready for that. And then there's a little blurb in there about tutoring, but I've already talked to you about that. So now here is some information that helps you. Take time to read these. What is a crime? I'm not going to go through these. Constitutional protections. The information is right there. Federal versus state court. It explains the differences. It could be a start point for your research for your written assignment. Right to counsel. I already kind of talked to you about Gideon versus Wainwright as being an important case. It's such an important case that there was a movie that was done and a book called Gideon's Trumpet that I use in one of my other classes. But it's a landmark case, and you know what constitutional amendment is involved there, and it says 14th, but there's something else that goes with that as well. I'm not going to tell you what that is. You'll find it out by your research. Right to grand jury and jury trials, explaining what happens with these kinds of things and what those are all about. This is information for you to guide you. Don't just go through it and say, oh, I'm just going to do the written assignment. No. Get a clear understanding. And then with, you're dealing with military tribunals, Uniform Code of Military Justice, which goes to your written discussions this week. So now you complete the following activities. This will help you a lot. Now, for example, and I'll normally do this with you, ask you for the answers, but I'm going to go through myself because this is the first day of class for you guys. So you're going to click and drag. So the constitutional distribution of government power and responsibility between the national government and the states. And so you're going to pick the one that fits. So a lot of people will go through and say, okay, let's see, look through. They say it sounds like it might be this one. I'm going to show you what happens when you hit it. It's going to go back because this is the answer right here, federalism. That's what it is. The constitutional assignment of legislative, executive, and judicial power to different branches of government. Now we're talking separation of power. Evils in themselves, crimes such as murder, rape, arson, robbery, which are universally, and what does that fit? Is that a indictment? Is it mala in se? Is it noli pras? Is it ex post facto? It's mala in se. The doctrine of deciding cases based on precedent. You'll hear this Latin term, stare decisis. Retroactive laws that criminalize actions that were legal at the time they were performed, but later became criminal. After the fact, or ex post facto, which means after the fact laws. A formal document handed down by the grand jury. Some of you already know that, but it's an indictment. Lawyers, and what you're doing is you're helping prepare yourself for the quiz, by the way, by doing this. And you're learning too. Lawyers appointed by the president with the consent of the United States Senate are what we call U.S. attorneys. A formal entry by the prosecutor who declines to proceed, which means they're not going to press charges. It's called nolli prosecute, which means will not prosecute. It's Latin. And then, of course, the last one is a code of laws enacted by Congress. And so right there, you got the answer to something that helps you with this last one. Come on, slide down there. Here we go. So these are things that you always want to do. Okay, very important. Okay, so again, I remind you about your course project. And this is just a little blurb to help you out a little bit and explain to you what's taking place. But notice what it does here. It gives you what I told you earlier. To articulate the foundation, week 1, then week 3. Then I told you, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then you have 8, 9, 10, and 11. 2 to 3 pages, both citations and a reference page in the APA format. And then for further questions, you can contact me, post a general course question, or look in the Get Starting folder. But pretty much. Now, this again gives some information about tutoring. We believe in helping you. Check out the School of Justice Guide for additional support. Let me show you something. I'm going to take a moment to show you this. I want you to see this. This is designed just for the School of Justice Studies, of which you're in. It gives research, database help, writing help, APA toolkit, information for careers, tutoring, and it gives criminal justice, law enforcement, and broken down paralegal. But these things up here, the research and the database and all these things, it helps you to go right to our Library and Learning Center team, Bethany Marston and Suzanne Schreifer put together. And then they give a video to help you as well. So it would behoove you that since the material is there to take the time to utilize them, because of the fact that it's going to benefit you in the long run. Then it tells you how to make an appointment with the tutor, what I need to know before working with a tutor, and so forth and so on. I do have a section in here that allows me, as your professor, to refer you if I see you need tutoring. Okay? Now, I want to go over the syllabus. Now, the syllabus is basically the contract or agreement. Tells you who your instructor is, the phone number. It lists my email, but I have 2. You could either type it with the 2 or without the 2. I also remind you in my instructor notes of something that you already saw. And students, you're going to see that one other place here. So there's no reason why you say, oh, I didn't know that. But the point of the matter is, it's right here. It's right here. It's on your home page as well. Then it describes your course, tells you the textbook. And then now, we get into discussions. And we kind of talked about that already. You know, each week contains a form, thoughtful, detailed responses. Yes or no, or I agree or disagree is not adequate, and you won't get points for that. And it says be posted on your course calendar, usually midweek, but it's on your course calendar when it is. And then the key thing is respond to your classmates as soon as you possibly can. Okay, try. And be courteous and recognize proper etiquette. Don't criticize or jump on somebody because you disagree. I say it all the time. I disagree with a student, and I'll explain why I disagree. And then I won't tell them that they're wrong, but I disagree, unless it's something inherently that involves. Now, I want to tell you this about discussions already. Discussions end Saturday night. However, I have a policy that if you post a reply post, not an initial post and a reply post, but a reply post on Sunday, I will take away 1 point and allow it. But that's something that's just something I've done. The school hasn't stopped me from doing it, so I'm going to keep doing it until someone says, no, professor, this cuts off then. But absolutely, positively, without a doubt, any of these posts that are submitted after that Sunday will not be given points because the discussion post forum is over. And that's actually a part of this document here. Then we talk about APA. I've already gone over that enough. Initial post, it says Tuesday by midnight, but that's not true this quarter. Normally it is. And then Saturday midnight, except week 11. And then written assignments, we know when that is, Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Until the last day of classes. Now, I want to show you something. This is what I want you to be aware of. This is the breakdown. I told you 110 points for quizzes. I was wrong when I said 800. It's 600 points for course project. It's 6 weeks that you're going to do it, which constitutes, look how much of your grade percentage-wise. 57, almost 58% of your grade. Now, your written assignments are half of that because you get 20 points for each week. Your discussion post, 10 points total, 5 points for initial post, 5 points for reply post. The additional reply post, you don't get additional points for, but you will be, I'll commend you and let you know that that's great. I appreciate that. Your goal is to get 100% by doing this. Let that be your goal. Now, again, take your time and do your quizzes the way I told you. Now, let me make my announcement to you. Let me see, there's something I was missing. Oh, no, it's down there. I'll wait till I get there. Let me make this announcement to you right now. Pucker up here and listen. My goal is to get you up here. A minus, B plus, B minus. That's my sweet area. The sweetest area, of course, is A, but my sweet area ends with C plus, and then certainly on down the road. Now, let me explain to you something. Never contact me or ask me, what can I do to get a C in your class? I will not answer you. I refuse to answer you because I don't prepare C students. I prepare A and B students. C students are average. Let me explain something to you guys. When you get ready to get a job or excel in your employment opportunities, it's not the C ones that end up excelling. It's the A and the B students. I ended up in a great law school, Northwest University School of Law, because I worked hard in undergrad. And I worked hard. I didn't have any internet. It didn't exist. I didn't have any of this social stuff. I didn't have Google. I had to use big, huge, gigantic books. I used legal pads and paper. I used typewriters and word processors and things like that. The point of the matter is that I worked hard, and I always set my goal high at the beginning of the quarter and consistently kept pushing to get my grades up. And I would pay attention to what the professor gave me feedback, and if the feedback wasn't clear to me, I would then reach out to the professor again. Of course, we were in class then, and find out, is there any more I can do in my future papers. But usually you're going to find that the key thing for you guys is going to be following the rubric and what's in the module and making sure that you don't get hit with Grammarly. Make sure that your percentage is not high on the Grammarly check plagiarism. And when you do your Grammarly checks, make sure you check the plagiarism box because it won't do it just without it. You have to do that. The key thing is making sure. But I can assure you that when you start to take the time to do your assignments and you get them according to those requirements on time, that you will be heading in the A and the B section. In this class, there are a lot of students who end up here. There's a few who end up here, and there's a few who end up down here. Don't you be one of those. Don't you be one of those people. So that's the key. So, and then the other thing here is make sure that you be aware I'm going to do these things. I respond to messages within 48 hours. I respond quick. You already know how to reach me. I am doing what they call a synchronous learning session. Now, I'm supposed to conduct a synchronous learning session each quarter. That means a synchronous, that means one, which would mean this week, and then I don't have to do any more lectures. But I have elected to take the policy to be hands-on with my students and to formulate good communication with my students, which is a two-way street, by having lectures every other week. I used to do them every week, but because of like the attendance here now, I think we have in this class 25 or 26 or 27 students in this class, and I've got just a few that are here. The point of the matter is that I take the time to do that, and I take the time to cover the material for that week. Now, I could forget that and then go right into the lecture because I haven't even gone to the PowerPoints or any of that now. I would go faster here, but there's some things that I want to make sure that you understand for the quarter. This particular session today is designed to get you started on the right foot. Okay? So now, I want to talk about something that's really important to this school and to me as a professor. We have identified what we call transferable skills. The definition of transferable skills is skills that are transferable. Where are they transferable to? Employment opportunities, career success. And so we incorporate these in our written assignments, in your assignments that you read over, not just the ones that you get graded, to increase and enhance your communication. Communication is critical. It is very important that you be able to communicate. If you saw my little blurb in the student lounge about the word lawyers and how communication fits in there and how important it is to take those skills. But you're going to find, especially in criminal justice, but as in every profession, communication is very important. And then we're going to be constantly talking about critical thinking. You're going to hear that from me so much. And then, again, I've already explained critical thinking. But if you don't, just go ahead and take a look into the Rasmussen guide for critical thinking, and it explains to you all we're really trying to get you to do is to apply the knowledge that you attain from your research and your studies to provide solutions to the questions that are included in the written assignments. When you do that, you're doing critical thinking. I am a natural critical thinker because when I was in law school, I learned under what we call the Socratic method. In other words, I presented my viewpoint so that things could be presented from my perspective. And like I said, my professors didn't always agree, but they will give you credit when they recognize that you're thinking it out, even if you don't agree with them. So critical thinking is paramount. Digital fluency, well, that goes without saying. We're in an age where everything is digital now. When I came up, as I told you, we didn't have any of that. But I'm very fluent when it comes to being able to operate on the basis. When I first started teaching at Rasmussen in 2011, I came to teach a class. They had me an adjunct teaching teaching business law residentially. And then I told them I was a criminal law person and criminal justice, and they transferred me over. And then they would bring to my attention that if I was going to keep teaching, I had to learn how to teach on a LMS or a session like this, Blackboard. We had other ones before that, Angel, and I had to learn how to use those tools. I had to learn how to use WebEx. We had Wimba way back. We had Adobe. So all of this. And now my books, our books, you can get them digitally. Now, some students don't like that. Then I do. I appreciate it because I remember all the years that I carried books. But here's the deal. That's going to transfer over into what's happening in the real world as well, as you should be prepared to know. There are students who can't because they have some accommodation issues. That's something that they address in the school. But for most students, then you will be able to learn digital fluency, and it's a service to you because you're going to need to do that. Diversity. People come from all walks of life here. People come from all views. People have all kinds of political positions. People have various religious positions that they have. I'm a Christian. I am also a pastor, as you may know that from my class in the lounge. But there are people who are Buddhists. There are people who have Scientology and other beliefs. I'm not going to criticize them. There are people who are gay. There are people who are not gay, and there are people who are from different parts of the world who speak a language that I don't understand totally. But the point of the matter is that I respect who they are as individuals. In fact, I'm active with the Diversity and Inclusion Committee of the school, and we'll be participating in a panel discussion coming up for our school at a seminar coming up later in the month here. But diversity is so important. You must learn diversity because as a law enforcement person, particularly as a person in criminal justice, whatever area you go into, you're going to find yourself dealing with people from various backgrounds, various economic and social levels. And you're going to have to learn to respect people in terms of that. Very important. Then you're going to be working with teams. There's no Lone Ranger stuff anymore. Everybody works with a team. As a police officer, you work with investigators, you work with detectives, you work with forensic people, lab people, you work with defense attorneys, you work with prosecutors, you work with medical technicians, all kinds of people, educational people, mathematical people, and they're all part of a team, and you get accustomed to that, and we want you to begin to think like that as well. I like to tell students that the class consists of teamwork. Me as the leader of the team, but you guys are members of the team, and my goal is to guide you and direct you. I will not spoon feed you with answers to questions. I'm not a person who's rude, but I do remind students that there is information there, and you need to take the time to apply those things for your benefit. We have some great, great, great people that I work with from various disciplines, and we work together, and we appreciate academically preparing our students as a team, and that's what you begin to work with. Ethics. I can't say enough. There's a course that you take, but listen to me, people. I used to teach a course in ethics and criminal justice. I used to teach a course in business ethics. I taught a course, medical law and ethics. I've taught all of those. Ethics is very important because ethics is what's going to keep you out of trouble. I can tell you, and we'll learn this as we go along the quarter, and students who've had me in other classes, they know that there are law enforcement people who have done the wrong thing, and it's not about dumping on dumping on law enforcement, but it's about people being ethical in how they do their job. There's been so many wrongful convictions, but now we got DNA, which didn't exist when I was around, and so it's a lot of scientific stuff that's taking place. But the ethics is so important that there are requirements that lawyers have, police officers have, all areas of operation should operate. Ethics are very, very important, and it's going to manifest itself in how you do your schoolwork. If you do your schoolwork by taking somebody else's information and taking it as your own, even if you give credit, but you're still not adding your part to it, there's a problem. Employers are not looking for people who can copy and paste. They're looking for people who can be creative, who can use their minds. That's what we're trying to encourage you to do here. But in an ethical fashion, give credit to where it is due. Professional responsibility is a cousin and part and parcel of ethics as well. Very important. And then I talked earlier about information literacy. Guys, let me tell you something. We teach you how to research. We tell you researching is all. I can tell you the truth that I know a lot of stuff, but sometimes I forget it. So I go back and I do my due diligence, I do my research, and I go back and I use reliable resources to come up with the information I need. You must be literate in being able to find information. Good research skills and techniques will take you a long, long, long ways, okay? We're almost done with this part, and then I'm going to be sharing something with you. The attendance policy, you guys already should take a look at that, but I do want to take the time to make sure that you understand something about late assignments. Assignments, it says here, and I'm going to read it, can be submitted up to 7 days after the deadline. So the deadline is generally Sunday. So from Sunday to Sunday. But remember this, a 10% penalty is assessed for every day it's late. So let's go ahead and see by the third day, if it's 100 points and you lose 10 points, you got a 70. By the fourth day, it's a 60, and it's filling. And that's the problem. Now, it tells you that in some cases, such as late discussion posting, students may be asked to complete an alternative assignment. Don't look for that with me. I don't do that. I don't have time. I have 120 students, as I said, and I have enough to keep up with each of you guys. Some of you in more than one of my classes, but the point of the matter is appreciate the fact that your discussion posts and things like that, all your assignments, should be done, and don't ask for makeup work. I don't do it. Now, I already said this earlier, and I call your attention to the third line actually. Online discussions conclude at the end of the current week module. Discussion posts made after the due date will not be accepted. Or let me put it another way. I'll accept them, but then you won't get points. So what does that equal to? The same thing as not accepting it. So now, here is my discretion. Instructors may waive the late penalty in case of extenuating circumstances as determined by the faculty, who is me, I, in this class. Not the dean or anybody else. It is up to me. So how do I know why your paper is late? You let me know. You text me. You emailed me. You may even called me and left me a message. The point of the matter is, and then when you do text me, by the way, speaking of that, make sure you identify the class you're in, because I may not know, and I'm not going to go back and look through every class to see which one you're in. You need to give me that information. And if you're in Introduction to Criminal, which you're not in this class, to corrections, that's more than one section. But anyway, the point of the matter is that I work with students in extenuating circumstances. I have a policy and a history. I got one student, a young lady, that sticks out right now. Her dad died, and I worked with her. I didn't penalize her, but I told her to make sure that she took care of herself first, took care of her family matters, and then let me know. Now, sometimes students come to me and say, well, my work schedule doesn't allow me to get things on time. I said, I can't help you with that, because you're going to have to learn how to do what we call time management to help you. Okay, there are extenuating circumstances that happen. There are situations that occur. We had a few not last quarter, but quarter before last, the hurricane issue that took place with our students down in Florida. Well, I extended it to all of my students because I took the position and I let the leadership know that even though there were people who were students who were not down there, they may be up in Minnesota, which the hurricane wasn't affecting, but they may have loved ones or family members down there or close friends, and they're concerned about those things. If you're in the military, people, let me know if you have a rendezvous or something. And then, students usually will say, okay, let me give you my orders. I don't want your orders. Remember what I talked about ethics earlier? I'm looking for that. I'm looking for that to be in the case, because it's going to catch up with you if you aren't operating in that vein. You might say, well, I got away with that one. Professor Wright, I pulled one over on him. Professor Wright's getting paid. Professor Wright's got an education. Professor Wright is a professional. And I have actually seen students who, as they say, trip themselves up. And then when they get caught, it's not good what happens to them. So I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just simply trying to say, don't try to take advantage of me or any other faculty member, because when you start doing that, it's going to transfer over into your professional working as well. So I'm willing to work with you, but you got to let me know. I didn't want to bother you. Okay, well, shame on you. Shame on you. And so that's enough on that. And then, let's see, incompletes, I won't even talk about that. We get to that at the very end. And then the academic integrity policy, you can take a time and read that yourself. This gets back to the ethics aspects of it. So that, people, lays out the expectations that I have for you. It's 9:40. I told you that I was probably going to go a little longer because I want to share. Oh, before I do that, I got to go and do this. I got to do this. Okay. Every week, you will receive one of these. You'll receive, today is chapter 1 and 2. And I will discuss these. And I will discuss, there's usually 2 chapters every week. There's a few weeks there's only 1. But it takes time to go through those. And I answer them. I don't just read them to you. I actually elaborate on them and give you some things that you don't have. So I recommend you print them up and so you can take notes and put them in there. Of course, you have the archive that you can listen to and then go back and get the notes, whichever way. It depends on the student and how they do it. And so each chapter, each week, we'll cover the different issues here in that. Okay, so this week I sent you chapter 1 and chapter 2. So I did that by way of illustration. In addition, I send you this as a courtesy. This is kind of like, it is an outline of each chapter, and it gives you things to help you. Now, don't use this in place of studying, but we used to have this thing when I was in school called Cliff Notes, and Cliff Notes were something that we utilized to help us to be able to prepare for the chapter after we've gone through it, an outline. But you have to go through the chapter first before you get to that point. And so this is very good. It tells you breakdown and things that will help you. By the time you get to this, then it gives you some key terms. Now, almost all of these terms here, you will have already come across in your reading beforehand, in your written assignments beforehand, in your research as well. So that when you get to the quizzes, you're going to see some of these things. Jurisprudence gives some cases, and it tells you some things that can help you as well. And it goes about 4 or 5 pages. Cases that are laid out, gives you the citations to cases, landmark cases, which Roper versus Simmons is one. We're going to talk about that a little later, and the death penalty. You have media tools, tells you also where you can find full decisions, which, by the way, there's also www.j150.com as well is another source that you can use. And if you clicked on that and save that, you'll have that as a source of research, very reliable for cases and things from all levels, all jurisdictions. Okay, so and that's it, page 4. So these are the things that you have for these next 11 weeks. I've given you the ground rules. I've covered everything that I can potentially think of. And right now, if you have any questions about anything, this is the time to ask. You can type it in the box if you have any questions. If not, just say, let me know, Any questions? Okay, all right. The key thing is, as I tell students, don't withhold questions. You're paying good money. We want to give you a good education. Sometimes no question is something that you later on says, I really wanted to ask this, but no, get the but out of the way and just ask the question. And then, I remember when we were in school, we were in class, people would laugh. Professors would say, why are you laughing? And they would get the person that's laughing the loudest and point to them, and they says, why are you laughing? Now it's your turn. Do you have a solution? Then that person has egg on their face. The point of the matter is don't be afraid. I always told my students, the stupid questions are the questions that you never ask, that you could ask. Because remember, once again, you're learning. You're learning. Remember my little L in my mnemonic over there. So, okay, now let's get to this. So anyway, let me share with you something about why I say adversity is a springboard to success. Uh, I am going to take about probably 10 minutes to do this. I am a professor. I'm 67 years old. I had a life change when I was 7, so that was 60 years ago. My dad was murdered in front of my face at home in the house. And what happened is the guy that turned out to be my mother's live-in boyfriend stabbed my father in the forehead with a knife in front of me. I was 7 years old, and my 5 younger sisters. I have a photographic memory, so I'll never forget it. He didn't go to jail. They nollie-prost the case. Remember, I talked about nollie-prost earlier, which means they didn't prosecute. And the reason why, as I got older and I found out that they didn't do so, because my mother, who was in love with this guy, said that my father was the aggressor, and therefore they didn't prosecute the case. Now, I was in there, but they wouldn't call me because I was too young from the standards. Well, it gets worse. Wait a minute, how can it get worse? Hang on. The same man who did this ended up living in the house with us from that point on openly. He was already renting a room, but now he was living openly with us. He slept with my mom, and it turns out that this guy was a violent man. I grew up in a house with this man of domestic violence. He used to beat my mother so bad. There's these movies out here like The Burning Bed, What's Love Got to Do with It, Ike and Tina Turner story, and various other. And domestic violence is something that has gone on for years. But I used to live as a kid and see this man beat my mom profusely. He one time beat her with a bat, and he went to jail, but she went back and got him and brought him home. And he continued to be violent. My mother would never leave him. People told him she needed to. Well, she had 2 more kids by this man, and she moved us out of the area we were living in because the area had gangs in it. But here's what happened with me. The gangs made a pact not to touch me because they knew I was the only surviving male of my family. That was when the gangs had some ethics, and they actually were dealing just with themselves. That was before drugs were heavily involved, before AKs and all these other weapons that are used. Drive-bys weren't like they are now. They would tell you if you were a kid, shorty, get out of here. You're not involved in this, get away. That was like that. But anyway, we moved to another area, Gary, Indiana, from the south to west side of Chicago, which is a pretty tough area there now. It was tough then. And we moved to this beautiful home in Gary, and 62. Well, Memorial Day of 1963, after my mother had had her 8th child, and she was born in 62, Memorial Day of 63, he murdered her. He cut her up, let her bleed, and drove her body around from Indiana to Illinois, and parked. He turned himself in to the police, threw the knife in a cemetery in the city of Chicago, and then pled guilty. Now, I was told at this time, I was 13, by the time I turned 14, that the man was going to receive 10, if you can see all my fingers, 10 years. That didn't make me happy. But what I'm going to say next made me unhappy. They said 10 meant 5 because he got a day for a day in good time. And then to further aggravate the issue, they told me that he was going to receive, if he was good in prison, listen after what he did, a year and a half off, which means he could potentially serve 3.5 years, and that is exactly what he did. I was 14 years old and a kid who was very disturbed by that. It bothered me to no end, guys. And it put me into a light that I just had to try to figure out what do I do about this? And when I get to that point, I ask questions. And finally someone said to me, it's these people called lawyers. Lawyers. And I said, "What? Tell me about them." They said, "Well, they operate the system." So I went to the place where I could find information about lawyers, the library. And I asked the librarian at the school. I was in 8th grade. Um, heading 8th grade, yeah. I was 14, so yeah, I was in 8th grade because I graduated from 8th grade in '65 when I was 15. And anyway, they told me, here's a book. And I took that book out and I read that book cover to cover in one night. And guys, the next day, anybody I met, I told them my name is Richard Wright and I'm going to be a lawyer. And as it was, anything that headed me in that direction, I ended up doing to help me to get to that role. So I continued in that vein, and finding myself in the situation where I would not quit until I got to what I wanted. I went through high school, and then my job right out of high school was working as a messenger in a big law firm, and I told you about that earlier. And I started school at night, political science, and I studied. I didn't have a car. I studied on the L train. If you know anything about L trains in Chicago, it's equivalent to the subway in New York. Well, anyway, the point of the matter is that was what I used to do. I would work during the day and then go to school at night. I would carry these books across town in downtown Chicago, and I would finish at 10 o'clock at night in class. Get on the train, ride 2 hours to get home, and I would study, and then oftentimes I'd fall asleep. Then I have to get home, grab a little bite to eat, say hi to my wife, and then my kids. I had 2 kids right away. They were 46, and one's going to be 47 this month, and the other will be 46 in May. But then I have others after that. And those are not the ones you see on the picture. But at any rate, I worked my way through school, continued to push my way through. And I found myself in the situation where when I was in college, started at a junior college, and then transferred to a 2-year institution, a 4-year institution where I got my bachelor's, and I got it with honors. I stayed on the dean's list, and I continued working hard. I knew I wanted to go to law school, and the tradition was to apply to no less than 2 law schools. I said, I'm applying to one, and I applied to Northwestern University and got accepted in Northwestern and ended up graduating 3 years later with a law degree. While I was at Northwestern University, I met a gentleman who was at that time a lawyer, a criminal defense lawyer, one of the top ones. In fact, it was he who later he became a judge who suggested to me that I go to California to take a seminar when I was a practicing lawyer and with the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers to study. And when I got there, they put us in sections, and the guy that was heading our section was a guy named John Cochran. Yes, the same guy that later on, 10 years later, would be known as Johnny and was OJ. So I had some training from him. But anyway, Judge Pencham was his name, the judge that suggested to me. He says, If you want to be a lawyer and learn this system, become a defense lawyer. He says you will learn it well. So what I did, guys, I became a criminal defense lawyer and defended murderers, even though I was the victim of having parents murdered. I still did a great job. I have that photographic memory of mine. I utilized it to persuade jurors. I was known as the lawyer that they couldn't beat because I didn't need my notes. I would talk and walk and look in the eyes of people and conversationally. And I did that while struggling through. I remember back to law school, in my first year of law school, my wife I was married to at that time, my first wife, she ended up going on strike. She was a teacher, and we didn't have any money. And I was going to quit and leave school, but I had a professor who said to me, that is not an option. She's still at the law school now. Many years, I graduated 39 years ago from there. And she wouldn't let me quit. And that's the way I am, guys, with all of my students. And so I successfully made it through, became a lawyer, and then I went to seminary, 91 to 93, for a Master of Arts in Religion, which I did everything but complete a paper. That's why it says pending, but I'm not worried about that. I became a minister and then a pastor years later. But what I'm going to tell you guys is this. Along the way, I took a job to become the village attorney in a corrupt town, and then I became a part-time police officer because I said I wasn't going to carry a gun. So I went to the police academy and trained. So I did all of that stuff. My point being is this. I had a lot of adversity in my life, but it didn't stop me. It kept driving me and using it. So I recognize and empathize with any of you guys as students who have a problem or adversity comes into your life. You have a professor who not only can tell you, I understand, but can relate to you based on personal experiences. And I am here to help you to achieve that success. And with what I shared with you guys earlier for the last hour and a half, pretty much, will help you to succeed. Save this tape. Save it. I will be posting it on the home page under recordings. It'll be available under YouTube, but you have to have the link to get to it. I will email you also the link as well. So I'm going to say good night to you guys, and thank you for coming out. Try to come next week because after next week we won't have another one until week 4. Think about it. Think about it. Week 4. I mean, you're almost at the halfway point at that time. I will every week, though, send you the PowerPoints and the additional information. So with that, and like I said, every lecture, we'll pretty much go to 10 o'clock. I thought tonight that I could do this in an hour and a half, an hour, but I always forget about the fact that I need to make sure that I go over stuff at the beginning to get you started. This is your first day of classes. Let's start on the right foot, no pun intended, and let's finish on the right foot. And let's start with an A, and let's finish with an A, or as close to it as you possibly can. And if you need any guidance to get there, I already told you how to do it. And so with that, I'm going to end the session. Unless you have some questions or anything, either of you? Okay. All right. So I'm going to say good night. And again, I look forward to seeing you guys next week and get going on those assignments. Again, reminding you, your discussion posts, are due tomorrow night, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. But every week after this, they'll be due on Tuesday nights. So I know I'm going to have some people that say, "Oh, I thought it was still Wednesday." Nope, it's not Wednesday. Okay. Good night.